Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. The same night that I posted my previous video, I decided to watch the 6th episode of Ahsoka. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the series, this is a live-action Star Wars series on Disney Plus that takes place a few years after the defeat of the Empire by the Rebels and focuses on the character named Ahsoka Tano, as played by Rosario Dawson, and who was the Jedi Padawan of Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars. The character was introduced by Dave Filoni in his 2008 animated series entitled Star Wars: The Clone Wars that ran for 7 seasons. She then began to appear in Filoni's 2014 animated series Star Wars Rebels, and it's from that series that most of the characters in Ahsoka come from. So as I pointed out in my previous Ahsoka video, which was a review of episodes 4 and 5, if you haven't watched either of those preceding animated series, you may not understand who the characters in Ahsoka are. That being said, while there were problematic issues that I had found in episodes 4 and 5, there were more elements and scenes that I liked overall in those episodes than I liked in episode 6. In fact, I'll go ahead and just say now that I would rate episode 6 as being rather mediocre at best, and I'll now explain why. First off, episode 6 was 46 minutes long, which was slightly shorter than episode 5, but Filoni's very slow pacing and the slow dialogue that he has used throughout the series made episode 6 feel a lot longer than that at times. And as I had forewarned in my previous Ahsoka video that was about episodes 4 and 5, yeah, Sabine takes center stage in episode 6, as there's only a few brief minutes at the beginning of the episode when we see Ahsoka and Hu Yang still in the cockpit of her ship that's being taken by a giant tentacled space whale, presumably to the same place that Sabine and the baddies went. But Hera isn't shown at all in this episode, so her side plot with Chancellor Mon Mothma and the New Republic senators who want to suspend her rank of general will probably come up again either in one of the 2 remaining episodes in this chamomile tea series. And why do I call it a chamomile tea series? Because chamomile tea typically causes drowsiness. So when we first see Sabine in episode 6, she's being held in a locked cell on board Morgan Elsbeth's ring-shaped ship as it arrives in the distant galaxy where she and the baddies intend to find Grand Admiral Thrawn. And while Morgan wants Sabine done away with, Baylan Skoll continues to keep his promise to keep her safe. When the ship arrives at its destination in the distant galaxy, it's a ringed planet called Peridia, and its rings are made up of the remains of those spacefaring tentacled whales who apparently go there to die. Sounds cheery, right? Then the baddies take Sabine with them when they travel to the planet's surface in a small shuttlecraft, and when we get our first view of the planet, it's about as drab as possible with few signs that there was once a civilization there. But it's not a lifeless planet because not long after they land, they encounter 3 Night Sister witches all in red with their faces painted black and white, much like they were presented in Filoni's animated series Star Wars: The Clone Wars many years ago. Unlike most of the characters in the Ahsoka series, the Night Sister witches were portrayed rather well and are a highlight of the episode. And probably part of the reason for that is that one of them was played by veteran actress Claudia Black, who was in both Farscape and Stargate SG-1. She's a very good actress who knows how to convey emotion, as did the late actor Ray Stevenson, who portrayed Baylan Skoll. Most of the actresses in the Ahsoka series, especially Natasha Liu Bordizzo, who portrays Sabine Wren, only seem capable of portraying a single emotion along with a very limited amount of facial expressions. And in Natasha Liu Bordizzo's case in particular, it's pretty much a single smirky expression 90% of the time, compounded by too much makeup that makes her skin look unrealistically perfect, making her the epitome of a flat character. And with so much of this episode focused on Sabine, most of the scenes that she's in are utterly boring, with one primary exception that I'll be talking about momentarily. The three Night Sisters don't like Sabine, which is completely understandable, and when they see her, they use their magic to put her into a holding cell so that she can't see the arrival of what so many diehard Star Wars fans were drooling to see in this series: the arrival of Grand Admiral Thrawn, as played by Lars Mikkelsen, who was also who voiced the character in Filoni's 2014 Star Wars Rebels animated series. Sadly, Thrawn's first ever live-action appearance was rather anticlimactic because Filoni didn't bother to show the arrival of Thrawn's beat-up Star Destroyer to the planet. There are a few external views of his ship to show its condition, but his arrival lacked the intensity that his character deserved. Instead, his ship comes to hover slightly over the tower upon which the baddies and the Night Sisters are waiting. Then we can see into its interior via its landing bay opening along the bottom of the ship. And inside, there are hundreds of rather beat-up looking stormtroopers in armor that had clearly seen better days, as it's either held together externally with strips of red cloth, similar to the Night Sisters' outfits, has a number of other imperfections, or has a combination of the two. Obviously, since they have been essentially stranded in this distant galaxy far away from supplies, they've had to make do with the little that they have on hand. But Thrawn also refers to them as the Night Troopers, whose name tends to imply some type of connection with the Night Sisters. Some on social media are speculating that they are undead, which was apparently the case with the unemployed former Imperial Inquisitor who Ahsoka finally dispatched in Episode 4 to undoubtedly the joy of most viewers. When Ahsoka sliced through him with her lightsaber in Episode 4, he appeared to be just a lot of green smoke, which is characteristic of the Night Sisters' magic as Filoni had depicted in the animated series Star Wars The Clone Wars, because the Night Sisters can reanimate the dead into a zombie-like state. And that could be the case with Thrawn's Night Troopers. There's also an unusual one called Captain Echo, who has what looks like a gold death mask embedded into his stormtrooper helmet. The possibility that the Night Troopers are all like the dispatched former Imperial Inquisitor is further implied by Thrawn showing his respect and praise for the three Night Sisters, who have clearly been assisting him. Thrawn also directs his troopers to empty the catacombs, and the troopers are seen later in the episode moving what could be coffins into his Star Destroyer. Catacombs, by definition, are underground cemeteries. So while all of this is going on, Thrawn has Sabine brought before him, and the two had previously met in Star Wars Rebels. So he has no problem exiling her into the wastes of Peridia, believing that she won't survive. And to hasten her demise, he also sends Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati after her because he doesn't actually want them around either, since Skoll is a former Jedi, in spite of the fact that they have been working for Morgan. Skoll is fascinated by the planet and says that he was drawn to it, which has some hardcore Star Wars fans on social media speculating about who or what that might be. But their speculations require a significant amount of familiarity with both the Clone Wars animated series and what is now a Legends 9-book series called Fate of the Jedi that was published between 2009 and 2011. Since no normies nor the vast majority of Star Wars fans who aren't hardcore are going to understand what these speculations are about, if that's truly what Dave Filoni is drawing from, it's not going to improve the size of the show's meager audience, which is probably mostly comprised of hardcore Star Wars fans and people like me who want to review it. So not long after Sabine ventures out into the planet's bleak landscape astride a wolf-like creature that had been given to her by the Night Troopers, she's attacked by a group of bandits. So she grabs her lightsaber and actually does a decent job of dispatching them in a rarely good scene that involves her. Unfortunately, she then starts talking to her wolf-like creature, who finds an alien midget turtle-like creature hiding in its shell. She gets the creature to come out of its shell, and it's apparently bipedal, though it comes across as being rather awkward. And it's apparently not alone, because Sabine, with her unblemished makeup, and who never broke into a sweat after dispatching the bandits moments before, asks them about Ezra Bridger, because after everything that has occurred up to this point, she remains singularly focused on finding him and nothing else. Even Baylan Skoll earlier in the episode told her how her focus on finding Ezra Bridger is essentially blinding her. But she and her wolf-like creature follow the small turtle-shelled bipedal aliens to their encampment, which is reminiscent of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Too bad they weren't singing, hi-ho, it's off to work we go. And their encampment bears a striking resemblance to homeless encampments that many people see in major metropolitan areas all across the United States. So I don't think that Dave Filoni considered that when he designed this particular setting. And guess who anticlimactically pops out of one of the turtle-like aliens' ramshackle huts? Why, it's none other than Ezra Bridger, as played by Iman Esfandi, and who looks like he hasn't bathed in a very long time, cut his hair, or cleaned his tattered clothes. In other words, he looks like a homeless guy, and you don't have to pay money to subscribe to Disney Plus in order to see that on a regular basis in real life. Naturally, Sabine finally shows some joy, which may have cracked her unblemished makeup, as she hugs the presumably smelly homeless Ezra Bridger and they start gabbing. And what's funny is that when the episode swings back to Thrawn, the Night Sisters, and Morgan Elsbeth, the Night Sisters can sense that Ahsoka Tano is on her way there, but they don't bother to mention or seem at all concerned that Ezra Bridger is just in walking distance away from them. So maybe he's not really that much of a threat, because that's the impression that this episode suggests. For anyone who saw my previous video about episodes 4 and 5, you may recall that I said that it's very unlikely that I will ever use the word compelling to describe anything that occurs in Ahsoka. And here we are, 6 out of 8 episodes into it, and there still isn't anything that I can describe as being compelling. While there are occasional brief scenes when the show might become noteworthy and interesting, those moments are the exception rather than the rule. And while the series has some interesting visuals when they haven't been filmed in too little light, and there are some great costumes and makeup, the series itself remains predominantly boring and lackluster. Filoni could have had much more impressive reveals for Thrawn and Ezra Bridger, but he chose to make the reveals unimpressive and anticlimactic within the same exact episode, and I think that too was a mistake. So the drab, nearly colorless world that they're all currently on fits quite well with the overall dullness of the action and the story itself. Will the upcoming episodes 7 and 8 be any better? I highly doubt it. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, and please feel free to share a comment. If you'd like to help support this channel, please press the red subscribe button, and please press the bell to receive notifications for new content. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.